Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about Windows versus Linux, specifically their file systems. The Windows file system is closed source. It has a singular choice, which is NTFS. This is all developed by Microsoft and they basically make all the decisions. You're going to use their system that they choose and they develop. The file system is case insensitive, so it doesn't matter if you use uppercase or lowercase, it sees it all the same. And in general, with the licensing and all the upfront fees, it has a higher startup cost, but it can have a cheaper labor cost over time because Windows admins can be lower cost in labor. So overall, they can save you some money if you look at the entire picture. Windows file system starts out as an open permission, and then you kind of restrict it down and you say who can have access to it and stuff like that. Linux, on the other hand, is open source. That makes it where the choices are great, but sometimes it could even have too many choices. So if you have the knowledge and the know-how, the open source is very powerful and convenient, and a lot of people are working on it to verify and make sure that there's no bugs in the code and stuff like that. Just like you have a lot of operating system choices for Linux, you also have a choice of file systems, ext4, Riser4, XFS, etc. There's a lot of them to choose from for your specific purpose. The Linux file system is case sensitive, so a capital F and a lowercase f in file is two completely different file folders or files. So it can be confusing when you're switching over from Windows where you're not used to it and going to Linux. Linux starts with a restricted file system, and then you basically grant permissions and different things like that to the stuff you want to open up. So which one of these two systems would I choose? It really depends. There is no one right answer. If I am speccing out a system for somebody I'm going to support, in general, I'm going to suggest a Windows file system because it's the one I'm more familiar with. But overall, if the budget and everything else and the support is there, it really depends on the particular usage. Like I stated before, Windows can have a higher upfront cost, but can eventually end up overall in the project of the lifetime be cheaper if you have admins that are cheaper in cost and stuff like that. But the important thing to understand is no project is the same. Some Windows may be better for some projects, whereas Linux may be better for other projects. Enterprise storage solutions, when you're choosing something like that, I'm going to talk about two different ones. First would be cloud storage. This would be SharePoint, OneDrive, Google Workspace, Citrix. There's other ones. But we're going to compare and contrast that with a direct storage system. That's the physical hard drives and the storage attached directly to your computer that allows you to access it. For cloud storage, it's much easier in our remote world since COVID. It's much easier to get to the file systems without having to use a VPN and stuff like that. So it's more conducive to a remote workforce. It's better for collaboration, working on files at the same time. You can literally be working in two different people could be working in an Excel document, and it allows them to edit that file at the same time. Depending on your cloud provider and stuff like that, say you would choose Microsoft, they have built-in redundancy. So you have this fault tolerance. If a server that it's on that you're accessing goes down in the West Coast, there's some on the East Coast and all over the country that have that redundancy to, even though it may be slower, you still have that redundancy and that fault tolerance. The bad side about it is cloud storage has a monthly subscription fee, so you're going to be paying on that continually, but you're not going to have to upgrade every 4, 6, 8 years, whatever your refresh project or controls are. Direct storage system, those have a higher upfront cost because you're buying all the hardware, you're doing all that stuff, but you have more control over it. You can design it exactly the way you want. It doesn't get exponentially more expensive as you add more storage, stuff like that. You put it behind your company firewall. So if you don't have the need for it being on the web, you have that control to lock it down, and you can only allow access through like a VPN or something like that. But your project plan has to have built-in redundancy and built-in backups and things like that. It's still a good idea to back up your cloud storage, but the fault tolerance and the things like that make it much more resilient, where you have to really consider that stuff as part of your DAS plans. Like I said before, it has a higher upfront cost, but potentially would be cheaper in the long run if you factor in all the monthly subscription fees and stuff like that. From a Christian perspective, what should you be considering, ethically and stuff like that? First of all, when you're speccing these things and you're trying to take into considerations, take all of the considerations into the thought process. What are your clients' needs? What are their expectations? You want to spec the best system for their specific project and requirements, or maybe it's the company has a high tolerance for failure because they have such a small budget, so you spec a minimum system with a robust backup or something like that. And then the other thing is, manage their expectations, that communication, that all of that stuff, making sure that you are under promising, over delivering, and just working with them and making sure that they understand. And that doesn't mean, so I started to say this a little bit ago where I was talking about speccing a system where I was supporting it. What you shouldn't do is you shouldn't spec a system with the expectation that you're going to win that project. So I would be choosing a Windows system over a Linux system because it's the one I'm most comfortable with. What you need to make sure of is that, hey, I think Linux may be a better solution overall, but if you're going to have me support this, I need to give you the specs of a Windows system from that standpoint, because I need to feel the most comfortable with what I'm doing. So that's that transparency, that honesty, that you're telling them why you're speccing a system specifically with the thought process that you're going to be supporting it for them or whatever. Final tips and takeaways. Every company, every project is different. The needs of the company versus a project may dictate different solutions. So, don't let your personal bias dictate the best solution. I stated this earlier, under promise and over deliver, and communication is the key. You want that transparency. You want them to understand that what you're giving them is the best solution given the constraints or whatever. So that is an overall view of the Linux versus Windows operating system, and I hope it has been a knowledgeable gap filler for you.